It is Thursday night. It's 8 p.m. You know what that means. It's time for your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast, and we are coming off an exciting Tuesday night, a dramatic Tuesday night, a controversial Tuesday night, and a whole lot of other stuff. We're going to talk about NXT versus AEW tonight, what went down with NXT and Dynamite went head-to-head. We're going to talk about the aftermath. We're going to talk about drama going on around it. We're going to talk about people having meltdowns and who knows what all else. WWE had a pay-per-view last weekend, so we got Fastlane in the rear view, and we are on the road to Crown Jewel. So there's all kinds of stuff going on. Folks, we are glad you're here. Stay with us. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast starts right now.
Big gold belt, big gold belt, big gold belt, big gold belt. All I really want, that big gold belt, big gold belt, big gold belt, big gold belt. All I really need, that big gold belt, big gold belt, big gold belt. All I really want, that big gold belt, big gold belt.
Hello, everybody. We are live here tonight. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast is with you each and every Thursday, 8 p.m. Got two of us here tonight, possibly a third. We will see if we get a run-in as the show goes on, but Will is here. Damian G from the Lone Star State joining me as we got a busy week to cover. There has been a lot that has happened this week, and it might work out that's just the two of us because we got a lot to get into. We'll see if Silly Celis joins us, but I'm pretty sure 2 Chains is busy, I think, at Comic-Con in New York City.
Yes, he's at Comic-Con. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so as it says at the top of the screen, Big Gold Media, wrestling, movies, comics, and more. Got to have some of the team covering New York City Comic-Con. So you're going to want to keep it peeled on the social media feed at Big Gold Belt, and of course biggoldbelt.com for what's going on with all that, because I'm sure 2 James will be sending in some reports this weekend of everything he's getting into. But we are here to talk about wrestling as we do every Thursday night, and this was a week. This has been an interesting week because I get the feeling, for me personally at least, going into this Tuesday, I was just kind of like, my feeling was like, God, people are putting a lot of damn emphasis on this, and it really doesn't feel like something that should be that big of a damn deal to me. Because it's like, okay, yeah, Dynamite's having to move to Tuesday because of the baseball playoffs. So they're coming on to NXT's night, but it's just for 1 week. It's not like it's a schedule change. It's not like it's a big, pay-per-view or stadium event head-to-head. But, both sides loaded up the card and all this. But in the end, I was going into it, I was like, okay, but it's just a 1 week thing. So,
Sure.
What is this going to mean in the grand scheme of things? But I guess, it goes back to, they used to have that pay-per-view bragging rights. And I guess that's what it comes down to in the end. This is all about bragging rights and people wanting to be able to say, we did this, we did that, we put on this kind of show and all that kind of stuff. Going into it, Damian, what was your take on the Tuesday night tussle as I was thinking of it this week?
Okay, so for context, last week we talked about it, and a lot of us, if not all of us, were pretty much like, who cares? Like at this point, like we downplayed the whole thing because, as you stated, it was 1 day. It was going to be 1 day. It wasn't as if we were going to run it back to the Wednesday Night Wars again, that we had originally. We've been going back to the Monday Night Wars that we all grew up with during the Attitude and Nitro era.
Right.
And so I took that to think, you know what? You know who's going to win? The fans are going to win because there's going to be a lot of wrestling to enjoy, something for everyone. If you want women's matches, you got it. If you got random shenanigans, you got it. Something for everybody. And then, the wrestling happens as we predicted. It was awesome on all fronts. If you liked something of those 2 shows, but then it was the aftermath that made me laugh. And it's what we kind of expected. The tribalism on both sides took over a life of its own, more so than anything the events could have done. We grew up with Don King promoting things, right? Only in America.
Right.
So if you need promotion for your wrestling promotion, all you need to do is go on to the cesspool that is known as Twitter. And you will gladly see everybody hyping up everybody's show as if it's the Civil War and we're drawing lines in the sand as if we're taking to arms for this thing.
Absolutely.
And as the night went on, because I ping pong back and forth, I'm not gonna lie, I went between the two of them, and I personally found NXT the more enjoyable show for me, strictly because they had more people and matches that I wanted to see. So, does it make me an AEW hater? No. Does it make me an NXT mark? No. It said, hey man, we have two options here. Something you're going to like out of both of them. And I did. I just happen to enjoy one more than the other. What's more puzzling to me is that you didn't hear a peep out of WWE about ratings wars and this, that, and the third. Sean moved in silence. You know what I mean? Where Tony was like, hey, look what we got over here. Forget about it. Take it out right here. My man, and here's how I know he took it too seriously. He went on Dan Le Batard's show, which is one of my favorite sports shows since I was a teen. And he has a working relationship with them. And he pumped this up like it was the Civil War. He was on whatever drugs he was on when he went on that show that morning. He was on them because he was like, we have a great show, and like full Carnival Barker mode. And I just got the sense that, oh yeah, you're trying too hard because you know you're going to lose. Like, that's what I got from it. He was trying so hard, you knew he was going to lose. And it was one of those things where, yeah, and we'll get to the ratings, even though you and I don't talk about ratings a lot. He lost. Okay, moving on, but no, and we'll get to that also. He couldn't leave it alone.
Yes,
and
we will get into the fallout, the
we'll
aftermath,
but
yes.
Overall,
First the shows themselves is what we gotta set the table with.
Okay, I'll set the table with this. Y'all know me. Well, you and the team know me long enough to know that I'm a women's wrestling purveyor or connoisseur, whichever way you want to slice that banana.
Right. Absolutely.
They had Asuka and Roxanne, and I told y'all last week that was going to be an interesting booking decision because Asuka was undefeated on the NXT show.
Right.
Roxanne is the prodigal child on NXT in terms of in-ring acumen.
Yes.
I was tempted to see what was going to happen. It played out exactly how I thought it was going to play out. They gave the Empress her send-off, her welcome backs, the weird thing with Tiffany Stratton backstage. She was treated in reverence. She was treated in reverence outside of Tiffany, but Tiffany got to work her character with her and have that little rub, which was, I felt that was perfect. John Cena, the fucking NXT crowd is singing John Cena's theme song. At what point did we ever think we'd go from John Cena sucks to people actually singing the theme song?
It was not him getting crucified at that ECW show in 2006.
Which I was at. So yeah, there were two different things. Exactly.
The furthest thing from it. That man was beloved in the Performance Center.
And we talked about last week, the talents that were going to get the rub from working with those two, or also with Taker at the end, which that's a different story because Taker's just stay home, man. Just stay home. My man and his kids, I just couldn't deal with it. But having Cena work with Mello and Trick backstage, right? It's just setting up the new era of upcoming NXT to WWE superstars. And that's why I enjoyed the show more, because it was setting the table for what's to come when these talents inevitably get to the main roster, especially the ones that were made for TV. So that's why I will give it a if I'm going to put it like in a rating scale, like in a letter grade, I would say for me, NXT was a B+.
Okay, very strong.
AEW was a B-B. And that's okay for what it was.
Yeah, there were two very different shows. They were two very
Yes.
different shows. 6'8" Jake checking in, saying Cena had a very warm welcome. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Cena, like we said, was beloved down there at the Performance Center. The best way I can, and I agree with your ratings. I enjoyed the NXT show more because the NXT show had that novelty of, whoa, Cody Rhodes is showing up on here. Cena's showing up on here. Paul Heyman showing up on here. The Undertaker showing up on here. So it was like all these big names that you've never seen in that environment before. So it was a unique deal as far as like, how are they going to utilize these people? How are they going to fit in? Like you said, who are they going to rub up against to give like some little spice to or something? Correct. That was the curiosity out of the NXT show for me. And that was it for a 2-hour show. That was enough to like, for 1 week. It was a great idea. I think it was a great idea. The novelty of that would wear off if that was the usual thing. And this wasn't a normal show. So it's like, that was kind of perfect. It was a special event, almost like, like a Raw 1000 or Raw 25th anniversary
exactly what it
episode.
Was.
Where it's like, it's a 1 week special event. And that's what it was. The AEW show, on the other hand, from the beginning, looking at it, I was like, okay, this feels like another episode of Dynamite, probably, with maybe a more stacked card than some episodes. But it felt like business as usual, Yeah, they had some like banger damn matches. I mean, hell, no one's gonna complain about Bryan Danielson and Swerve opening the show and getting a good chunk of time. So there was some good stuff on there. They had some really good matches. You had that. Of course, we had a title change. You had Hikaru Shida winning the women's title from Saraya up in there in their one, weekly women's match of a choice that they put on. But that was kind of a surprise in there. So they threw a title change at folks. And of course, they had the pre-show with Minoru Suzuki going on there with Eddie Kingston. So they even did that. They went on YouTube 30 minutes early, trying to drum up interest. Like you said, Tony was trying any darn angle he could try to get
30 minutes commercial free.
Right. 30 minutes commercial free on both. Hell, AEW went like a good 40 something minutes commercial free or something.
And Jake saying NXT's cameos made the show shine for sure.
Yeah. That was the special part of NXT.
And Devin saying both shows were great, but I feel NXT got the upper hand by a little bit.
Yeah, that's really, I think, that comes out. I don't think anyone's going to tell you either show was bad.
No,
I'm not, at least. I mean, there's other people online that'll tell you, I guess I should say, that would say one of the shows was bad. But I thought both shows were good. They both did their own darn thing, and they were very different shows. Yeah, and it is a Tuesday night. They're going up against the baseball players. The Orioles were getting blown out on Fox, so it wasn't much of a game. But when I started the night, I had 3 screens going because I wanted to see what was going on with the O's being from DC. That's, we didn't have the Nats when I was a kid, my old self. So the O's were the closest thing to a local team back then. So I'm partial to the O's, but that game didn't go anywhere. So as the night went on, I was like, okay, we just go down 2 screens and check in on that. But during that night, watching it live, NXT was definitely getting more of my attention. And I think it was really just because that novelty of what's Cena doing here? What's Cody Rhodes doing here? How are they going to be reacted to? And there wasn't that wild card factor with that on Dynamite. It seemed it was, it was a good episode of Dynamite, but it just didn't have that extra something, in my opinion. So I guess it did have something extra on there. Well, we'll talk. Is it time to get into the most controversial thing of the night?
I mean, if there's anything else that you enjoyed from both shows before we get into controversy, anything else that really stood out to you aside from, let's say, Danielson versus Strickland?
Yeah, let me look here. I'm gonna look down the list here real quick. The Dominic and Ilya Dragunov. That was a hell of a damn match at the top of the hour. Dominic was hanging with him. Dominic's come a long damn way. I think we've talked about that a lot, but I'll look at the AEW list here to see who else is on there. Edge, of course, Adam Copeland. His first, formal match with Luchasaurus. I thought it was fine, maybe a little long, but
about like 5 minutes too long, 3 minutes too long.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it was like, anything like, absolutely like amazingly great or anything, but for a first match in the company, it was what it needed to be. Cool. Christian is still hitting it out of the park with everything he is doing right now. Christian, I mean, you can make a case, man. Christian might need to get strapped up with that world title.
I wouldn't be surprised, man. I wouldn't be surprised. He's getting there.
He's got a lot going on right now, and just the momentum he has going is something else, and it's definitely not as bumpy as some stuff we'll talk about in a second. Got that Jay White and Hangman Adam Page match in the just apparently in the ratings got killed going up against the Dragunov and Dominic match. So when we get to the rings, we'll talk about that. Jericho put over Powerhouse
Hobbs got
Yeah,
steamrolled, essentially.
got steamrolled, and that to me, I'm like, okay, great. Let's see if it actually goes somewhere. You know, there's been so many starts and stops with him, and we've seen so many odd instances of Jericho supposedly hooking people up, you know, Action Andretti and all this, and just how does it pan out after the fact? You know, there's only so much a win over somebody is going to do. So for me, that's okay. I like that they did it, but wait and see. Yeah, exactly. Now what? Not getting too excited about that just yet. All right. That overall, I would say that was the big stuff. So coming out of this show the next day and hell that night, probably out of both shows, the biggest thing I saw people talking about was the Bullet Club Gold segment with MJF, and specifically Juice Robinson's involvement with MJF in the show. So, God, this is a delicate issue, and some people aren't really taking it that way, but I'm going to tell you why. To me, it came across, I was like, ooh, okay. I mean, we've all heard the story, you know, MJF Max has put the story out there about, you know, the quarters and the incident that happened with him in high school with the football team throwing quarters at him, and, you know, in an anti-Semitic manner, and, you know, his identity as a Jewish male and all this. And so that story's out there. It's part of his character at this point. I would say it's safe to say it's enough to the point that people have been thinking for a while that something would be happening with him involving quarters, that he'd be turned on by Adam Cole or something, and quarters would be involved. It's been put out there before and been discussed online. So that aspect is nothing new. This was the first time it's been like the toe's been dipped into it. So if you weren't watching the show, or if you haven't seen the actual part, they have a promo with Bullet Club Gold. Jay White's running down, you know, I have the title and all this, I have the belt, you have to come get it back from me, I'm going to be the champion, blah, blah, blah. And then Juice Robinson leans in at the end and talks about, and I got something for you too with your name on it. And he pulls out a roll of quarters, and written on the quarters is Friedman on the quarters. Now, a lot of people immediately are like, oh, well, that's his thing. He's been knocking people out with quarters for a while now. That the quarters aren't something that he just pulled out tonight. It's no big deal. It's part of his gimmick. Okay, I get that. I can get that. That's an established thing that Juice Robinson's had going on. So I get that. Where it's odd to me is the specific detail that it didn't say MJF on the quarters. It said Friedman.
Yeah.
That's a bit too intentional to me, and a bit too leaning in towards like the plausible deniability goes out the window for me, where it's like you put MJF on, it's like, okay, it ain't great. The timing ain't great. What's going on in the world this week, but okay, it's a gimmick. It is what it is. You put his name on it. Yeah. Then it's like, that's just an extra little twist of the knife where it's like, that's where you're going with this. That's the point you're trying to make. You're trying to make it uncomfortable. You're trying to go there. And of all weeks to do it, man, I don't know. What's your thoughts? Basically, the big thought is, was it too much?
For the week? Yes.
Yeah.
For the week, yes.
Okay, but even take the timing out of it. The way it was done, the way it was handled. I mean, I don't know. You weigh in here. What were your thoughts?
Okay. So as we're talking, I'm writing stuff down about the history of wrestling. We have seen the roll of quarters being used long before you and I were alive, right? Oh, yeah. As a weapon, you know, and clocked in the head. Shoot, we talked about growing up in the neighborhood, you get beat with a sack full of quarters. Right. You know, like that's a staple, you know, what we've heard growing up. So for me to hear that, see that, wouldn't have been a big deal. So I get that. You were like, to your point about the gimmick. Friedman didn't have to be put on the damn quarters, man. Like, you didn't have to write that on the quarters. You could have just had a roll of quarters in your hand and dangled it or something.
I got something for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and then hold it up like a brass knuck or something.
It's an established part of his gimmick. So it's not like people go, well, what's that? You know?
Yeah. And it's the fact, like, you're right. They could have just put MJF. You didn't have to put the name, the whole thing on it. Like, I tell people in real life a lot, read the room. People
Right.
don't have spatial awareness in today's society. And the question, did I think it was in ill taste given the time frame? Yes. Had you done it in another, let's say, month, 2 months from now or before now,
Mhm.
and this wasn't happening, I would have gave a little bit of tap dance across the table, a little bit of a pass.
Yeah.
2 months prior. One, somebody had to approve that to go live on air. I
Yeah.
highly doubt someone said, you know what, I'm going to do this with nobody. I'm, just go into business for myself and do it shoot style, because you should be fired if that was what you wanted to do. We know this is part of Juice's thing. Get heat. That's his gimmick. Cool. But what I'm annoyed at, and I don't know, maybe you know the answer as well. Did MJF approve of this going live? Was this talked about pre-show, and did he give the okay? Because if he gave the okay, then I'm a little less vehement about it if he gave the okay pre-show. Or did Tony just say, trust me on this?
Yeah, it certainly seems like he did, because he's posted a few times about this since it happened. I can't imagine that they did that without him signing off on it. So I'm very sure he was okay with it. That said, the timing of this week was horrible. And just because he's okay with it still doesn't mean it should have been done on national TV this week.
It doesn't make it right. It
right,
takes the sting out of it a little bit.
I think a lot of people are like, well, he was fine. I'm sure if he was fine with it and everyone's cool with it, then why do you have a problem with it? It still doesn't make it
still stinks.
Great. Yeah, something can still taste bad if you still thinks it's like, let me find what he wrote here, because he put up a couple things about this. So the morning after he put this up, and there's where people are saying, oh, it ties into this event he's doing. So Maxwell Jacob Freeman, October 11th, quote, tonight that piece of shit, Juice Robinson, decided to bring up a story from my childhood that has left me scared. I'm glad he did. He brought awareness to something we've all gone through in one way, shape, or form in our lives. On behalf of anyone who's ever been bullied for being different in any capacity, I look forward to leaving him scared too. I also look forward to this Thursday, and then he's promoting that today, October 12th at Gillette Stadium, he was going to be appearing at an event, Stand Up to Jewish Hate. So there's an actual event tied into this. So, okay, great. That part, no problem with that. That's all fine and good. Now, from there, he put up more. Okay, so then as the day went on, people were, okay, a lot of people pointed at that immediately and were like, oh, this is why he did it. This is why they did the angle, because he's doing this, anti-Jewish hate thing this week.
Event.
So event, I guess would be the best word for it. Yeah. So that happened today. I haven't heard anything specifically about that today, but people were like, well, that's why it had to be this week. It was just timed into that. Okay. So people kept talking about it all day long. It has been quite the topic of conversation, to the point that later on in the day, he weighed in again with this. Muhammad Hassan was portraying an evil Muslim terrorist. I'm actually Jewish. I've actually gone through this. This is my real life, my story. And I look forward to giving catharsis to every single person who's ever been oppressed or bullied. If you think I play with that, or take it lying down, or worst of all, hide from the hard conversations like a coward, you're on crazy pills. I look forward to the hard conversations that starts and creates. I look forward to people being further educated. My life's work is to stand up to any and all injustices done to people due to something as stupid as being different. To anyone that thinks this can't be done through the avenue of professional wrestling, that's an indictment on things that have happened in this sport's past. I look forward to bringing this sport into the present. I look forward to knocking Juice Robinson's teeth down his throat. And most of all, I look forward to getting back the Triple B. That was his second statement throughout the day. So I think between the two, it's safe to say this was planned. He was in on it. It wasn't like he was blindsided by, the idea of quarters being used in the angle. So I think it's safe to assume that. Where I'm not crazy about his statement is things like, okay, one, Muhammad Hassan wasn't originally portrayed as a Muslim terrorist. That angle originally was about an American-born, someone of that descent who post 9/11 was then vilified by his fellow countrymen. That was like actually the interesting twist of that angle, is they didn't go with the foreign menace thing. They went with the idea that I grew up here, I'm one of you, and now you're looking at me different.
Correct.
That was like the interesting part of Muhammad Hassan, before eventually they just threw all that out the window and got to the point of, he's a terrorist going after Undertaker, which led to him being taken off the air.
Mm-hmm.
It literally killed his career when they went that route with it, because it was too much. Another instance of bad timing because the London bombings when they did that whole thing. So, I mean, you talk about it ruined his career. It ended Muhammad Hassan as a thing. So the comparison isn't exactly apples to oranges.
No, it isn't.
I think in that respect. Now what he mentions with how, wrestling's passed through this kind of stuff. That was something that definitely jumped out at me, because wrestling does not have a good history with touchy stuff like this. It doesn't have the nuance usually to handle something this delicate in a well-rounded manner. I mean, I think back over the years to stuff like, we've talked about it before on the show, Booker T and Triple H, when they brought racial stuff into it. During the Iraq War, when they have Sergeant Slaughter become an Iraqi and Hulk Hogan's Mr. America. It's just like, when they try to mix current events into stuff, it never plays out in a good manner.
No.
It always feels cheap. It always feels tacky. It always feels,
Carny.
It feels dirt. Yeah, carny and dirty, and he's, as he says, like, okay, that's an indictment of wrestling's past. Absolutely. But that's what we have to go off of. So I think overcoming that history and that stigma is going to be extremely hard to do. And then now that he's brought all this up, here's another part of it that jumped out at me. So the way this has now been framed is, so best case scenario for Juice Robinson is, okay, this is prior part of his gimmick. He's not really being anti-Semitic. He's using it to get under his skin. Okay, that doesn't sound great, but it's like, okay, I'm gonna use a racial epithet, but I'm not really racist. Right. I don't know about that. And then worst case scenario, what am I supposed to think now, that in kayfabe this character is a bigot?
Right.
What if I'm Juice Robinson, I don't know how crazy I am about doing this, because for him, how does he come out of this in a good manner?
He doesn't.
That's the only two options I'm seeing here in kayfabe,
Right. And let's not even talk about how this affects the person, like away from the ring. Because we talked about just now about how Muhammad Hassan, the character, that died. So the wrestler Mark Capani portraying him
had to go. Yeah,
had to go.
UPN was like, no, gone. We to the point that we do not want to see him again. He has to be gone.
Yeah. So we never saw Mark Capani ever again.
Yeah.
So how does this affect the person portraying the Juice Robinson character? Like, is this going to, because it's made the rounds on places like Fox News, for instance. So
TMZ picked it up.
Who's to say that some people who take wrestling a little too seriously are going to now view this person as a full-fledged bigot because of the actions of being on camera? Forget the character, the person.
Right. That's just, is like, this is a very delicate issue being brought up in a week where there is a lot of high tension in that part of the world. And if you have a Jewish background, feel free this week. And there's a lot of all times that this wouldn't be a good thing, like you said, on another week. I think we'd still be having this conversation, just being like, what are they doing here? But of all weeks to do it, it was just like, whew, tensions are high already. And then you throw this out there and just, I mean, I think a lot of people, we get it. We get that it's a TV show, but not everybody does. Not everybody does. And that's just it. So I'm curious. And that's coming out of this, other than those statements that MJF has made, I haven't seen, there's been nothing from Tony Khan about this. And Lord knows he's been online. We'll talk about that in a second. He's not addressing this other than MJF, bringing up those two statements. That's there hasn't been like any real statements
No.
from the company or anything about what they're doing here. And
There hasn't.
no,
There hasn't.
I don't know,
That's what goes back to what we're talking about. For them, it was a wrestling angle of just like, all right, well, this is just moving the story forward.
It's
And
heat.
Max said, okay, that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
We're taking it as the audience as something that more than what it was. Obviously, we do it for a lot of things in professional wrestling. We take things a little too seriously, or life in general. The timing is the thing. Again, I will end it by saying the timing was completely wrong to do this. You could have just waited. You could have just not done it. You could have just hit him with quarters and not said nothing about it to keep the angle going if that's your gimmick. But
Right.
you chose that day to do that specific thing for the angle. And I'm like, look, does it bother me? Only because of the timing. Overall, it's a wrestling angle. If everybody was okay with it, like we said, it doesn't make it right, but it happened.
At this point, we got to see how it's followed up on, and if they keep leaning into it, or if they dial it down. I don't know. I mean, it could very easily, the way this has gone down, I could easily see it being one of those things where they don't specifically mention it again after this, and just kind of allude to it. But
I also want
do they keep replaying it, or is it just happen that we
that's what I would do.
Move on from it? Yeah.
I would not replay it. I would just move on from it and just be like, all right, if you know, you know. If you don't, even better.
Yeah, I hear you on that. All right, we're about halfway through things tonight, so let's do this. Let's go to our commercial break. We'll come back. We'll talk. We still got kind of the aftermath of the Tuesday night stuff again. We've dealt with the shows now. Now we got to talk about the aftermath because people have been tweeting. People have been seeing to have a lot of drama about
numbers,
how the ratings came out, and then hopefully we'll get to talk about some Fastlane too, depending on how much we get into here. But thanks for being with us, folks. We will be back right after this. It's your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast, and we'll be back in just 60 seconds.
Big Gold Belt Media is your golden standard for all of your media needs. Visit biggoldbelt.com for pro wrestling info, movies, comics, and even more digital content. On all of your social medias, follow us at Big Gold Belt all across the board. Listen to this show and more on your SoundCloud or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for being with us here tonight, folks. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. We have broke down, I guess, all the stuff with the Tuesday night tussle as far as the shows themselves, what caught our eye and all that. So now let's talk about the aftermath, because it's definitely been this really has been the story of the week. Just this Tuesday night show and what happened and them facing off. And here we are 2 days later, and it's still going on with a assorted drama. So, of course, the next day, everyone was waiting for what's the ratings going to say. And Lord knows we don't like getting into the weeds on the ratings here, but it's caused a lot of drama this week. So here's what happened. 4:00 yesterday, the ratings drop. NXT, 921,000 viewers, 18 to 49 demographic rating of 0.30. Dynamite, 609,000 viewers, 18 to 49 demographic rating, 0.26. So in both viewership and in the prime 18 to 49 rating, NXT comes out ahead. Viewership by over 300,000 people. So a significant difference there. The demo a little closer, but still, either way, both categories, NXT wins the numbers game, which, man, it was their night. They loaded up the show with all the star power. Yeah, I think the only real question to me was I figured they would probably win it. The question was just how big of a number they would get. And I was also kind of curious to combined what the number would be. So roughly about 1.5 million. My only prediction going in, I was like, they ain't going to have 2 million people between the two of them. So I was like, there's too much going on. And just we know the Tuesday show to begin with. NXT isn't a big deal, but it has been on the rise lately ever since it's been adding star power like Becky Lynch and all that. So their numbers have been trending upward, whereas AEW has been kind of flat as it has been. And of course, this isn't their night. So the speculation was they would take a hit, and they certainly did, going down to 609 for this. But yeah, so both categories, the winners NXT numbers wise. Did that surprise you in any way? Were you thinking it might be a little closer, or was it pretty much what you thought it would?
I actually thought it was going to be what's surprising. I thought it was going to be more of a gap between WWE, NXT, and AEW. So I'm not saying it was close, obviously, but it was closer than I thought it was going to be. To be quite honest, I thought they were going to really destroy them more than what they did. So I guess if we want to talk like the sports, like, hey, instead of getting blown out by 50, it got blown out by 30.
Okay. Yeah. And the $1 million question, I would love to know, that we'll never know, how much of that crowd was flipping back and forth. How many of them were like, hey, I was doing it. It's like, how many were sitting there like, okay, flip, and just not sitting there watching the whole thing. I would love to know that. That's the $1 million question we'll never know, is how much overlap was there between the two audiences in those numbers we got there. But that said, numbers come out. That's that. The 24 hours we've had since then, since now it's Thursday night, those numbers came out yesterday. Tony Khan.
Oh, man.
He has had a heck of a week. As you mentioned earlier, he was in heavy promotion mode going in to this Tuesday. And I don't know if, like you said, that he was just bound to determine that, we're putting on the best show possible. We're on this roll. We filled Wembley and all this. And I don't know if this number sent him over the edge, or it's just he was just in his head not convinced this would happen, and just this, because hell, Lord knows in the Wednesday Night Wars days, AEW for the most part, 9 times out of 10 they came out on top, but or at least they'd be able to say, oh, we won the demo, but none of that here. It's both categories, nothing there. I want to pull up what he's been posting, because he has been on a interesting tear.
I got the main one. I could just tell you.
Oh, okay. You bring it in here. You bring it in here. Get us going on this whole deal.
This week, 2 active decades-long rating streaks from 2 great legends were ended. With all due respect, until this week's head-to-head AEW on TBS versus WWE on USA, neither John Cena nor The Undertaker had ever been on a WWE show with under 1 million total viewers, plus under 400K in the demo. My man's.
And your point
is what?
Yeah. I mean, I think the best response I saw to that, people there was like, what is he doing? I think the best response I saw to that was, what about Edge on your show?
Thank you.
Apples and oranges. I mean, if we want to make a comparison here, I mean, hey, same thing happened to you, man. So,
and I look at a tweet right now. I wanted to tell you earlier, but I'll say it now. Over Cher Delaware on Twitter, she put, or X put, look, if you want to keep it 100, the show was 2005 to 2015 WWE main eventers versus 2005, 2015 WWE main eventers on both shows.
For the most part. Yeah, it was the greatest hits package. You got Edge holding down the fort on Dynamite. You got Cena on there. Man, hell, how much did they feud back in the day? It very much was. It was the ruthless aggression era.
Yeah, so if we want to say the ruthless aggression era had almost 1.7 million people tuning in.
Yeah. 6'8" Jake saying AEW appeared to also have a drop in viewership week to week. Oh, no doubt, because they were on.
Oh yeah, nights. It's been struggling since London. It's been struggling since Wembley.
Yeah, and Lord knows, I mean, Edge's debut last week did not set the world on fire. So,
which we didn't think it would anyway.
Well, I think, and honestly, I think that's really because, in my mind, I don't know, I could be wrong about this, but I think what's happened with Edge, Adam Copeland, is he came over too quick. He hasn't been gone any at all. He was, gone for all of a month maybe, but we've seen him so much recently in WWE. This isn't like when CM Punk returned, where it's like, oh my God. Well, yeah, it was like a whole, this is like, well, we've been seeing this guy. He's been around, and I'll say it. He wasn't exactly lighting the world on fire in WWE. So for me, all I was kind of like, well, his return run hadn't been that damn great. It's had some moments here and there. I really like the farewell match with Sheamus, but a lot of his matches, I was just kind of like, eh. So him coming over here now, I'm just kind of like, okay, that's cool. There's a lot of new people he can wrestle, but it's not blowing my phone up or nothing.
And that's the thing. And I think a lot of people were overstating the fact that Edge wasn't having banger matches with everybody in WWE before he came over to AEW, the Sheamus match notwithstanding. We still got to remember, Edge is 49 years old, man. You can't expect him to be having 5-star classics with every single talent on the roster. He damn near 50. So if you really want to hang your hat on, this almost 50-year-old wrestler with a over 25-year career at the other place is going to revitalize us like he's Chris Jericho jumping ship for the first time. That's totally wrong. That's the wrong mindset to have. If anything, I was happy for Adam Copeland, the person. Like, hey, I want to try something different. Maybe he got the bag, what have you. But what has been one of Tony's biggest, I want to say, flubs in terms of AEW when he brings over new talent? The pop first, we'll figure everything else out later, which usually leads to a failed experiment. So we got the pop for Edge at the pay-per-view or the premium live event, and your first match with him is Luchasaurus, and you put him right with Christian.
Go the Christian route and pair them up, or try, tease the tag team, but Christian doesn't want it, and Christian's being a bad guy right now. So, again, leaning right into, let's go to the early 2000s. Let's go to Edge and Christian. It's like,
that's another reason why I wouldn't want to watch. Yeah, no, it wouldn't. Yeah. It's not going to make me want to watch it. Christian burying everybody else on the microphone, sure, I'll tune in for something like
Christian
that.
Christian is insanely entertaining right now, but I'm not looking to rehash Edge and Christian.
No,
at
all.
What's made Christian is him doing stuff with different new people. Him being involved with different faces, with Darby and with Nick. What's his butt? Oh my god. The kid. Oh my god. Nick Wayne.
Nick Wayne.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's the kind of stuff that's been interesting, is him working with different faces. But I don't know that. Yeah. So what else did Tony put up here? I'm looking at this. So after the rating came out, he put up, "Thank you all who watched AEW Dynamite Title Tuesday last night. I thought last night was one of our best shows that we've ever done. The fans in Kansas City were tremendous. The wrestling was great. And last night was the best birthday I've ever had. Thanks to all of you." So his usual. Everything's always the best.
As usual. Yeah.
Always the best. And promoters are going to promote. That's fine. If he had left it at that, fine. I can't fault him on, hyping up his product, because he's got to do that. He's got to be a salesman. But there's been all these odd shots at, taking shots at Vince for whatever reason in the last 24 hours. And Vince has allegedly used his power and influence to shoot a lot of shots. And it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, what's happening?
What are you gaining by taking shots at? Yeah, we know Vince is a dirty guy. We know that, and it's old news. Wrestling's a dirty business. You're not telling anyone anything they don't already know. And I don't know. Is it just I don't know. Is this trolling for the kids online? Do you think is that the extent of what he's doing? But I mean, this is a guy he's around 40 or something, right? I mean, he's not a young kid, but. No. The behavior, though, seems so much more so much younger to me. When I see him doing
with Tony, you're right. Because with Tony, what I get is he's a super wrestling fan that just happens to be super rich and can run a promotion.
He's a message board guy.
That's what he is. Yes.
Yeah, and I guess that's still in him. I mean, I don't know. It makes me wonder. I mean, I don't know what his personal life is, if he's has a relationship or anything, but it's I just don't get it. I don't get where doing this stuff would be at that age where it would come across that great. But I don't know, maybe it's just hey, you're trying to market to a younger audience. This is the kind of stuff you got to do. You got to go on there and talk your shit, right?
Promoter's going to promote, sure, but
promoters are promoting. That's fine. Yeah. I don't get the idea of how he's going so heavy on the digs at WWE. When it's dude,
what else has he got?
Yeah, but it's like when you have more to be able to say, well, we did this, we beat him in this, but it's like you didn't beat him in anything this week.
Nope.
So it's like it just comes across like, to me, it comes across like sour grapes.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
He's
it's like
grasping at
when you
straws.
can at least point to like, hey, we did this better than you.
Mhm.
Like how back in the day, WCW, we got this cruiserweight division. That's something you don't have. We got
Right.
all these, we got all these technical wrestlers: Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, Chris Jericho, all these that, these young and up and comers, and you got these old guys,
Mhm.
the Nacho Man and all that, that stuff.
The
Well,
Huckster.
that was them saying about WCW at the time, but
Mm.
yeah, it's like when you have something you could point out that's different about your product. That's not
Yes.
what he's doing in the last 24 hours. He's making it personal. And that's always to me, it's like, it goes back to the whole idea of like, when you got to start taking personal shots, that's never a good sign.
I think
That-
sometimes he's too thin-skinned for wrestling. Honestly, for this industry, he's way too thin-skinned, man. Take his Twitter away now, please.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was kind of seeing a lot of today, is people just being like, take his phone. And a lot of people are being like, no, don't take it. He needs to keep pushing. It's like, at this rate, he keeps pushing, he's going to end up saying something that's going to get him slapped with like a libel suit or something. I mean,
Mhm.
he does need to be careful with what he's doing here.
Shouldn't he be
'Cause Lord
putting over
knows-
his talent?
You would think at least be hyping. Hell, he's not. Where's the hyping up a Collision?
We got new tag team champions. We got new
Yeah,
tag team champions, and not one peep about that. Like, oh wait, FTR dropped the belt in 3 minutes. Like, holy crap! No, we're not talking about that.
Well, there was that, and there was like he was also dunking on people that would like, that were responding to him and just saying, we're not gonna watch and all this. And he's like, whoa, we don't care. He put the Roddy gif, with who gives a fuck and all this. And it's kind of like, I don't know. I guess it goes back to, we've talked about this before, that a lot of their marketing seems to always be preaching to the choir, preaching to their hardcores, and like, popping them so they can all high five each other and be like, yeah, you told them, and just, I don't know. I guess trying to rabble rouse his core audience.
Right.
And I guess with the idea that that'll attract people to it, to want to be part of it. But there is an aspect of that though, that also some people are just gonna be like, no, it's gonna turn people off, at the same time. So I don't know. And I don't know if part of it's frustration with, we've talked about, what their attendances have been recently. There's a lot of footage going around of these buildings that don't have a lot of people in them, and the stuff coming out of Wembley where, there's been, God, all the drama, hell, all the months drama with CM Punk, that overshadowed a lot of stuff. The drama coming out of Wembley with what was the attendance and all this. And so people were so concerned about the attendance of that as opposed to the show. I don't know. I think there's always been just so much stuff that overshadows what's going on there, as far as it's focusing on what the show is. And I think that's hurting them right now.
So that brings up an interesting question. I'm gonna pose to you.
Yeah.
If you were TK, how would you pivot from this to try to just let stuff go and just move on to the next? What do you think would be his best thing to do right now?
Yeah. Well, and like we started the show saying, this was a 1 week thing.
Yes.
They're not switching nights. It was a 1 week thing because of baseball. Just look at it as that. You lost this battle. In this battle, you got your ass handed to you. He made that one statement saying, we had a great show, blah, blah. That's all he should have said. And move on, start focusing on Collision on Saturday, Dynamite next week, because you're not having to go up head-to-head again. This time you got your butt handed to you. It happens. But it's not the end of the world. Hell, you're making money. You got stuff going on. Concentrate on, you got a TV deal to close. You got bigger fish to fry than worrying about taking shots at WWE for the 1 week you went, head-to-head. So that I would just be eyes forward, upward and onward to, hey, we got a show Saturday, we got a show next Wednesday, honor that. Luckily, we're not having to do this week to week. If they were in a situation where now this was a week to week battle, then there'd be a lot more to be concerned about, because you'd be having to come back next week and do this again. So that would be my thinking. I don't know. What's your thoughts?
I'm with you. I'd be more focused on the bigger picture. If anything, this makes me realize, okay, maybe I shouldn't be trying to, box with God, as the term is, and run in my mouth and just focus on my little engine that could and mind my own business over here while still trying to build my viewership. See, we brought up something earlier about dwindling viewership.
Right.
I'm more concerned about that long term, because how many episodes of this podcast that we've talked about, well, if the ratings continue to tank, where are they going to go?
Right.
You know, what network's going to take them on? Are they going to go the way of the Hootie? You know, and then we'll never be able to find them. So I would be more worried about putting on quality product, just good talent, good matches. Do what brought you to the dance. Lean on your talent to do the talking for you and your fan base. Like I said earlier at the beginning of this show, let the fan base promote for you and just hype up the shows like a regular old promoter. You don't got to be over here trying to gunsling on social media. Just focus on putting out a quality product and building your ratings from here. And let me just say this, for all the AEW fandoms out there that think that they are eventually going to crush WWE if they win head-to-head more often, you're not ready for the main roster, kids. Okay, let's just put that to bed right now. So if AEW decide to move to Fridays permanently to match up against SmackDown or whatever day they go on, or Raw, take that out your heads right now. It's not going to happen. Let's just enjoy the fact that they are an alternative to WWE and Impact and what have you, and move from there.
Yeah, being an alternative product is not a bad thing.
No, it's
not.
It's
just the lane they're in right now. That's what they got to focus on. Focus on differentiating yourself by what you're presenting, and just don't even bring them up. There's no good that's going to come of that right now.
No,
I think, especially after this week, because now, hell, the trolls out there that are on the WWE side, they got full clips right now, because they're sitting there being like, "You got your ass kicked," and that's. So it is what it is.
And an objective fan could counter and say, well, yeah, because you were supposed to. Had it been, had they caught you, that would be embarrassing.
Imagine the drama if they had pulled it off and beat them against that loaded show. That would have been huge. A couple years ago, probably would have been a good chance it would have happened.
Right.
The momentum shifts. It is what it is. All right, we've talked about this enough. enough about the Tuesday drama.
We don't like ratings anyway.
No, enough about that. We covered it every which way, so we'll see what happens with this. If hopefully this is done for the week, and see which happens on the shows next week. WWE had a show last Saturday.
We forgot.
The Fastlane. It wasn't the Fastlane to WrestleMania though. I like when it was the Fastlane to WrestleMania. I'm not sure why the Fastlane is randomly in October.
The Fastlane to Survivor Series?
Maybe the Fastlane to Crown Jewel. We gotta get through Crown Jewel first. So, this was the way I looked at this. I wasn't on the show last week. The way I was looking at this show was, this is a televised house show in a way.
That's all it was.
Because it was like, it's not, there's nothing too huge. It's a lot of running back matches. We're running back Seth and Nakamura again. And we got some other stuff going on. It was like, 6 or so matches. And they're all fine matches and all that. But also, we're still like, got Crown Jewel. Then we got Survivor Series. There's no Roman Reigns on the card. So it was definitely, back in the day, a B pay-per-view. This was a B pay-per-view.
Yeah,
so, which is fine. It's October. That's what's going to happen in October. It's not a tentpole huge event. To me, I kind of think the most notable thing coming out is what they did with the tag titles, that Cody and Jay are suddenly tag champs, which just seems incredibly odd to me. We have Jay Uso as a tag champion without his brother, and Cody, Mr. Finish the Story, with tag titles also suddenly. And
with one of the former Bloodline members, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it's going to last too long, but it's kind of like, okay, that's a thing they did. I don't know. What was your thought? That to me, that was the biggest thing that stood out to me, is what they did with the tag titles.
I mean, the biggest highlight is the press conference. Let's be real here. You saw the press conference.
Right.
Cody Rhodes say, yeet. Never mind. Just that in and of itself was entertaining. But you weren't on the show. You're right. Well, I forgot you weren't. So we talked about being a B-level house show and what was going to be the wet fart match of the night with all the silence. And we thought it was going to be the LWO versus Lashley and the Profits.
Right.
Yeah. And what I took from the show, watching it in the replay, the thing that interests me most is the switch of John Cena now. we're not relying on Cena's star power to be the box office main attraction for the match. We're relying on him to give the rub now to those people coming up, i.e., if you watch the tag match of him and LA Knight versus the Bloodline, Cena played the face in peril the entire match. Like,
he
the
wasn't waiting for the hot
struggling
tag.
baby face. Yeah, he gave the hot tag.
Right.
And that has been Cena's role this entire new run of his, where he's putting everybody else over as like being the cheerleader of these talents. You know, with LA Knight now being the recipient of such actions. It basically just reaffirmed for me that LA Knight, you could say lightning in a bottle, you could say that he's got it, whatever, what have you. They made the right decision to wait a little bit longer to pull that trigger on LA Knight, but they can't wait too much longer because John Cena gave the rub now. So what else are you going to do? You know, what else are you going to do to delay the ascent of LA Knight? Because now that Cena gave him the okay, the next logical step is to go through whom now? Because now you got Cody chilling over here in the tag division with Jay, and it's still weird going into Survivor Series because I don't really see a clear direction for the storylines now. Because, like you said, Crown Jewel, what is it going to be? Drew versus Seth.
Right.
Is that going to make me want to watch? No.
You know what I think they're going to do? I think they're going to put the rocket on him. I got a feeling Crown Jewel will have Roman Reigns on it because it's a Saudi show and the Prince is going to get what he wants. I think we might get Roman Reigns and LA Knight at Crown Jewel.
And do a schmoz finish or a title change?
No, there ain't gonna be no title change. There ain't gonna be no damn title change. He's gonna run into a brick wall there, and it's gonna be what it is. But I think they're gonna do a deal that they've done a lot of times, where it's like they're gonna give him his shot. They're gonna give him all the momentum through the month. He's gonna go up against Roman Reigns. He's gonna get beat, but then he'll settle in right underneath that, wherever he's gonna be. You know, whether it's gonna be U.S. title, Intercontinental title, tag team with somebody. You know, no one's taking Roman off there right now. So him being beat by Roman ain't going to hurt him. It ain't going to hurt him. The key right now it'll elevate him getting to have that main event and get a high profile match. That'll be like, you know, okay, we got you up here that will put him in that top mix. But I think it'll be a one and done. And then we'll go into, you know, is Survivor Series going to be War Games again? It sure seems like
it looks like we're going there.
The way Raw's looking with like Cody's putting together an army with Jay and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, and whether they're just going to go against the Judgment Day or what, you know, or a possible maybe 2 people from the Judgment Day and 2 people from the Bloodline, since they're doing this whole deal with Rhea and Paul Heyman talking. So maybe that's the deal. They kind of do like a melded Bloodline Judgment Day super team against like the Cody Rhodes army.
The Cody All-Stars, yeah.
Yeah, Cody also superpowers like his dad had back in the day. That might be where they're going for Survivor Series. So in the meantime, it's okay, you got this one show, have LA Knight, you know, and he can be part of the team. If they do 5-man teams, that might be the deal. Cody, Jay, Sammy, Kevin Owens, and LA Knight as a 5-man squad against it'll probably be Roman, Jimmy, Solo, and then probably Priest and Balor.
Yeah, and have Dom do shenanigans. Yep, there you go.
There you go. I mean, that's a 5-man War Games I could get behind.
I would love to watch that. I would actually want to watch that right now, to be quite honest with you.
We might have just booked War Games right there. If they do 5-man squads. Did they do 5 people last year? I can't remember if it was 4 or 5. I think it was 5.
Well, typically it's either 4 or 5. So
yeah, it's always been 4 or 5, one of the two. I'm trying to remember last year when they did Survivor Series, what they did. Pretty sure it was 5. No, it had to be because the Bloodline team was Roman, the Usos, Solo, and Sammy. So it was 5-man squads. So there you go. We made 5-man squads.
There we go. Boom.
Right.
We booked it for you. You're welcome, WWE.
There you go.
Before we get out of here, one other thing I want to bring up about Fastlane. This proved to me that Seth is stale as hell. His wardrobe and his theme song are more over as a champion, in my opinion, than he is. Because
it's time for a change.
It's time. It's been time.
And I think that change, Drew Mack as a heel. I want to see Drew Mac flip the switch. He'll be fresh. It's been, he's been around, but he hasn't been around a ton. And I really would like to see Drew Mac in that role. Like at Crown Jewel, do the switch there. Have him his first match out. Just let's do it. Let's do it.
And isn't that what he wanted? He wanted to win a championship in front of a large crowd.
Yeah, not in a performance center.
Right. This would be the perfect opportunity in Saudi Arabia or wherever it's being held now. Like, I think that's the perfect place for him to turn officially heel and then win his title in front of a large crowd. And it goes back to, remember the last Saudi show where Bianca lost the title to Asuka because you didn't think they'd be able to do it over in America. They did it overseas to drop the title. So it'd be a similar thing. It's like, well, do we really want Seth to drop it here, or would we rather just do it overseas? And like you said, the Prince gets what they want. So if the Prince says, you know what, I don't really like Seth having the title anymore.
Right.
There we go.
If the Prince just wants something newsworthy on his show, he's shelling out all that money. He's like, hey, look, we gave you a world title change. So
on my show. Yeah.
There you go.
Can you imagine if Tony Khan, was the Prince of like a Saudi show?
No,
how he would have something booked.
Oh, his fantasy booking would be out of control. It would be something else. It would be something else. All right, folks, we are at our hour. I was wondering how we were going to get there tonight with all this Tuesday night drama. We had a lot of Tuesday night drama to talk about this week, but we got it done, me and Damian this week. We'll see who's here next week with folks traveling and with conventions going on and all kinds of stuff. We will see which of the gentlemen show up next week for the show, but it stands right now, I should be around. So I think I'll be available next week. So we'll see what's going on because we are now on the road to Crown Jewel in a few weeks. There's Halloween Havoc coming up for NXT and I guess Full Gear for AEW. So for once, there's not an AEW pay-per-view immediately happening like there has been for the past like about 6 to 8 weeks. They've been on like that cycle. Yeah, there's a little bit of space here. So we'll see. Like I said, we got to see the fallout from all this drama this week. So we will be back Thursday night, 8 p.m. next week to talk about all that, what's going on in wrestling. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, our boy 2 Chainz is at New York Comic Con. So as it says at the top of the screen, Big Gold Belt Media, Wrestling, Movie, Comics, and more. There'll be a lot of movies and comics dirt, I'm sure, coming from him over the next couple days. So you can keep up with that at Big Gold Belt on all your social media, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, X, whatever you want to call it these days, on all the stuff.
Tout.
Big Gold Belt. Yeah, tout it out still. We will bring back tout, TikTok, and all that stuff at Big Gold Belt. We'll have all kinds of stuff there. I'm sure some videos will be getting posted on the YouTube channel and all that. You can also keep up to date at biggoldbelt.com on the full website for all the stuff that's going on between the wrestling, movies, comics, and more. And as we said, next Thursday night, 8 p.m., we will be back here to chop it up as we do with what's going on in wrestling. So thanks for tuning in tonight, folks. We will see you next Thursday. And until then, stay safe, watch some wrestling, and we will talk to you later.
All I really need